Hello, and welcome to that weird space between like the holidays and New Year's where we don't know what to do. So I'm going to talk about books and about what I got for Christmas. First off, I got this. My mom got me this warm fuzzy. I don't even know what two words I just tried to put together. Fleece and fuzzy. Warm fuzzy gray fleece. I don't have this color, and it's nice because it kind of goes towards the blue, so it goes more of my blue purpley shades of clothes. I mostly have like black and brown and like tan. Also, please ignore the zit on my chin. I picked at it. It's not there. We're not acknowledging it. The self-control was lacking, and I've had a lot of sugar and treats, so I'm breaking out a little bit. It is what it is. We'll get back on track with that. And then she got me these slippers. I haven't put them on yet. The dogs love them. They're so cozy and warm. But yeah, can't wait to break into these. And she got me these socks that come with a pair of socks for me and a pair of socks for the dogs. I think I'll try to put them on Josie. Rusty will not put up with this, but Josie will probably put up with it. Junior would probably just freeze, but I want to watch Josie tap dance in these. And a bag of these Hershey's Kisses, and I'm going to make peanut butter blossoms with them in the center. So sorry, it's so loud. Okay. Just can you sit somewhere and stop making so much noise? Rusty has been spoiled the past couple days because I've been home and he spent a lot of time on my bed and on the couch, and now he like gets upset when he isn't sitting like in my lap. And I just want to film something for 10 minutes. Is that okay? Am I allowed to do that? Anywho, you saw the title of the video. Today we're focusing on books, what I read this year. My goal was to read 20 books, and I did that, and then some. It says that like I read 21 books, but I read like 20 and a half. Although, if I have time, because it's the day after Christmas now, if I have time, I'd like to read this before the end of the year. So then I would be at 21 books, or 21 and a half, I guess. And I have one on my iPad I want to read. We'll see if we get to that. I have a lot of projects that I basically have to start doing right now. So this is the last day off, sort of. But anywho, I've got the stack here with me, and we're just going to go through them all. I'm going to make space. Okay, so the first book I read this year, and it was a gift from my mom for my birthday, was The Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood. I've probably talked about this before already. I mean, you've definitely seen a book review on my shorts, reels, TikToks, whatever. But I had a hard time getting into this book at first. It was kind of a slow start, but also I was just so busy that I didn't have a lot of time to sit and read. So I like to just like read a book, at least 2 chapters a day kind of a thing, depending on the length of the chapter, of course. But then once I had more time to read, I really got into it. I loved it. It was, I would say it's like kind of a melancholy book. Like it's looking back on, you know, someone's life and the trials and tribulations and struggles and trauma. But it has very hilarious, happy moments in it too. This book successfully captures the highs and lows of life. Okay, the second physical book I read, because I don't remember which digital books I read in the middle of these, so we're just doing the physical books in order, and then we'll do the digital books in the order of which I read them. But this year I've really gotten into grabbing books from little mobile libraries around where I live. And some of these books I'm keeping because they're mine, but some of them I'm going to disperse, and I want to take a trip to all of them and also pick up some more books while I'm there, perhaps. But anywho, on to the second book I read. I love this book. I could not put it down. It was great. I was kind of worried about the main character being, I'm not like other girls type, but she wasn't. It was really well written in my opinion, and I liked the research that went into it. Like there's some research topics in there as well. It reminded me of those early 2000s rom-com movies that I grew up watching, but if it were to be made today, if that makes sense. Like it could be shot the same way those were, but the subject matter is more of today, which I would watch the movie. If this was a movie, I would watch this movie if it was done well. This is the third book I read. One of my students gave me, as you can see, a bunch of Debbie Macomber books. These I will be passing out to all the mobile libraries to read. I've never read any books by Debbie, but I love Debbie now. Debbie's my book bestie at this point. I love her. She's taken me on a lot of journeys with all of these books, but we'll start with this one, A Turn in the Road. Never have I ever been so angry at the supporting characters and how they treated the main character. Like, never. I was fuming. There were certain chapters where I was like, I had to just close the book and just like, it's just a book. They're not real. But also, we know people like these supporting characters in this book, and they're the worst. It's as simple as that. But with that, it was a great book. A Turn in the Road. It was a great book. I loved it. I had some giggles in here. It was like nothing too serious. It was just kind of like the character was just irritating, and it kind of reminded me like if you're watching an episode of the Kardashians, specifically how they're shot. I don't watch the Kardashians, but I see clips on TikTok where people are recreating them, but how they shoot them to make them seem like the tiniest things seem way more dramatic than they are. And you feed into it a little bit. Like they are emotionally blackmailing you with those episodes into getting upset over silly little things. Although this wasn't the silliest little thing, but it felt the same. Like I was like, but I really enjoyed this book. Another Debbie book, the last one, Home. This one had me angry at some of the supporting characters, like a little bit, not as much as the other one, because they had their reasons, but also it's been years. Like, you could just check in and make sure they're okay and have some empathy. That's a thought. But it's funny, one thing I have to mention, the gazebo on the cover, there was like basically no mention of a gazebo in the entire book until one little portion. And it just felt like it was kind of thrown in there because this is the cover. I mean, I could be wrong, but I was really like, they could have just left out the gazebo thing from the book itself, like the storyline, and I would have been fine with this being the cover, but it felt like we're like, oh, we got to mention a gazebo because of the cover. I mean, it was still a good book, but that part I was like, wait, what? It caught me off guard a little bit, but I still love this book. Are you snoring now? He's so happy. He's all curled up. Okay, you're happy now. On my blanket. That's my blanket. I've officially lost count. A Walk Along the Beach absolutely destroyed me. Debbie. This book had me crying for probably 2/3 of it. Like, fully like crying, like sobbing, crying. I think that's all I can say. I guess I can say it deals with like someone slowly dying. So if you can't handle that, do not read this book. I could barely handle it. If I had known that going into it, I would not have read this book because it destroyed me. And it took me a while to like pick up another book because I was like, am I emotionally ready to read a book in the possibility of it destroying my soul and crumpling it up like a piece of paper and throwing it in the trash and setting it on fire? I mean, that's a bit dramatic, I know, but like, because it's a book, but still a good book. It's better this way. I feel very neutral about this book. It wasn't a bad book. I'm not going to say it's a bad book, but it's not really like really good. It's very just neutral. It's just very middle of the road for me. Everything was okay. I don't know what else to say. Okay, now we're getting into sci-fi. As you notice, a lot of this is like chick lit, rom-com kind of stuff. I love sci-fi. I love fantasy. And I kind of forgot that I was like obsessed with sci-fi books. Like, I just haven't read one in years. And I forgot how like enveloped in the story I become. Like, I'm just obsessed with it. I loved this book. This book could have been 4 times as thick and I would have read all of it. I have to look into this author, see what else they've written. I was obsessed with this so much. Or maybe they have a sequel out, I don't know. But it was just a really good sci-fi space book situation. I loved it. Also, can we talk about how gorgeous the cover is? Look at that. I could not put this book down, and I definitely recommend it if you are a sci-fi nerd like me. You will like this book, I promise that. This is a book I couldn't finish. I read 9 chapters out of, I don't even know how many there are in there. 45. I'm so glad I stopped reading this then, because this would have gone on way too long. I could not handle the graphic, gory content in this book. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Evidently, it is a good book. I'm sure it has some resolve, I'm hoping, but it was making me actually feel like I was gonna throw up. And maybe because it hits closer to home because some of my ancestors went through what they were describing in vivid detail in this book. So I just couldn't do it. And usually I like historical fiction books a lot. In fact, there's another author, I want to buy all of her books and read them all. But this one, I just, 2 out of the 3 characters that it follows, the 2, I could kind of handle. The third one, you could just take all those chapters out and maybe I could have read the book. But eventually I think they become intertwined. I don't know. So yeah, couldn't handle this emotionally, physically, in any capacity whatsoever. I told you I'm a fan of fantasy. So originally I'd picked up the second book in this 4-book series, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's the second book. I can't read the second book without reading the first book because I'm like that. And my friend, she had the first book and she just didn't get into it. So she's like, you can have it. We'll get into it, but I bought the 3rd and 4th book. I will probably reread this series. I loved it so much. It hit the same place that like Harry Potter hit for me as a kid and still as an adult that I just love. Jennifer Donnelly really created an amazing little world. It's kind of cheesy sometimes, like, which gives me little giggles here and there, but I don't mind that because it's a good comedic relief from how serious the storyline is. And the characters are just so cool. I just loved it so much. I'm a big fantasy fan. What can I say? Then of course I read the second book almost immediately, like right away, as soon as physically possible. I think I finished the 1 book at night and I was like, don't start the second book. You need to sleep. You can read it tomorrow, which was very hard. Took a lot of self-control, but it was just as good. That like sometimes I worry with sequels and trilogies and whatever, that sometimes it'll just start to like decline, you know, like they're being forced a little bit. No, this is a fully fleshed out saga. It was incredible. I loved it just as much as the first one. And can we talk about the album art? The album art. Oh my gosh, the book cover. Gorgeous. I love these so much. Then I took a little pause because I had been waiting for the other 2 books to come in the mail from that and read another Debbie book, Changing Habits, and it follows, I forget how many, 3 or 4? I don't know, it follows the lives of multiple women becoming nuns. I felt like I was seeing into a way of life that otherwise I never could have learned about, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, I could have researched it, but something about having it written in this format, my brain was like, oh, that's what it was like. That's what their experience is like. And that's why they do what they do. And I really liked this book. It was a really, very good book. And this one I'll be passing on to my student because I don't think she's read this one yet. I wish I could hand her the digital books I've read as well because those have been good. And then back to mermaids. I was so excited when these came in the mail. In fact, the last one came before this one. So as you can imagine, I was like freaking out. I'm like, I need the 3rd book. I need to read the 3rd book or I'm going to lose my mind. And I loved it. It's just so good. And it's interesting. Each of the book kind of focused on 1 or 2 of the main, because there's like a group of main characters. This one focused more so on the one you're seeing on the cover, like, and what she was doing. She was real busy. She was dealing with a lot. But again, gorgeous cover. And yeah, I feel like I have nothing else to say other than I love this. I love fantasy books so much. And then sadly, the saga had to end, but it ended great. I loved the last book. It was everything I could have wanted. Well, that's a lie. I want more of the books. I mean, I don't think she's going to add on to the series, but if she does, I'll read them. I was genuinely sad and had to like take a week to just digest the fact that this world was ended for me. How am I supposed to be okay now? But loved it. Really loved it. Great series. So this is technically 2 books in one. So it's A Christmas in Mustang Creek and then also A Cooper Ridge Christmas. So like halfway through, it's another book. So this is technically 2 books. I counted this as 2 books because it's 2 books. The one is clearly thicker than the other, but it was 2 stories. Now I'm going to talk about the first one first. I loved the first story. I will have to admit it was very spicy at a certain point, which I like. It was kind of like hinting like, this is going to be spicy from like the first few pages. But then it was like, okay, oh my, like I felt like I needed to look away. Like it was a very spicy book. But the storyline, even though there was like spice, the storyline was still wonderful and very cute and holiday happy vibes. And then the second one in it was still a pretty good book. Also, it was very spicy. But an issue I had with it, it's kind of incesty. Like the 2 characters, technically they're not like related and technically they weren't siblings, but the situation they grew up together in just kind of made it a little weird that they ended up together in every sense of the word. So do with that what you will. But I mean, it was, yeah. I like the first one more than the second one for sure. I think, I don't, I'm just gonna leave it at that. And here's the book that I finished on Christmas Day, A Mystery in White. It was a murder mystery, not set on the train. Well, kind of. Yes? Kind of like, people like, it's funny, I read the foreword in this and they're like, oh my gosh, it's like Murder on the Orient Express. And it's like, no, it's not. It is not like Murder on the Orient Express. It just happens to start here. Also, there's multiple murders, by the way. But it starts on the train and then we go other places. So like, it isn't like Murder on the Orient Express. It is definitely its own thing. I feel like this book does a very good job of capturing what social life was like in the time period it was written. I forget. It was written in the late 1930s, and the occult and all of that kind of stuff, it was all in there. It just felt like a little time capsule of what actually possibly could have gone down in that day and age. Like, it didn't feel as fiction-y. Like, I'm like, this could have been in the 1930s. Like, stuff was weird. Stuff was weird at that time. But aside from that, I loved it. I did have one chapter in it in particular that I loved. Like, I was obsessed with it. The one character, it's not really like a spoiler because it's established in the very beginning that he's like kind of sick. Like, he's coming down with something. And then there's one chapter that kind of follows him with that sickness. And it's funny. I'm gonna admit, it's kind of funny. It's like really ridiculous. And we've all been there. We've all been sick to the point, well, maybe not this far, but like, we're not doing great. We're in the same boat as him. He got out of the boat though. He got out of the boat and came back eventually, but that's the only way I can describe it. But I love this book. And this was one of the books I bought in the summer, and I'm keeping this one. I'm definitely keeping this one. I won't be putting it in the mobile library because I will read this again in the future or lend it to friends who like cozy mysteries because I loved it. And also the cover is so pretty. Like, just setting it out as a decoration during the winter. We're back with the final few books that I read. These are all of the digital books that I read throughout the year. So the first one I read was Murder on the Mayan Temple. I felt like I fell in love with sci-fi, fantasy, and mysteries this year because last year I feel like I mostly read a lot of chick lit stuff. And don't get me wrong, they were great. I loved them. But I kind of it's almost like I forgot that I love these genres like a lot. But Murder at the Mayan Temple, it was a great little cozy mystery. It did have like some spelling errors and stuff because it was published by an individual author. I just don't really care. I haven't written a book. It seems like a lot of work. I can see missing a few things here and there. I'm not that offended. But the mystery itself was great. I really loved it. And this is your sign. If you have an iPad, probably Kindle as well, I'm certain that there's a bunch of free books you can read. And I just add them to, I want to read them, and I go through them whenever I have time and just pick a few. And some of them are really nice and short, like they're just 150, 250 pages. And I just fly through them. Like if I have a long weekend, I'll just sit and read a book. Am I boring you? That was in July that I read that one. See, I like this because it actually shows I'm going to do better about logging on Goodreads when I actually read a book from like when to when and stuff because I got lost a little bit here. And that reminds me, I saw a bookmark that looked a lot like a library card, and you would write the book and then you would write when you started reading it and when you finished reading it, and then you could like leave a little review. I want to make a little thing like that to put on the back of my bookmark that my friend got me, like just tape it on there for the year kind of a thing so I can sit and like write down. Help me keep track. I just want to keep track of my books. Then the second digital book I read was Flirty 30 because I was like, I'm turning 30 soon. I'll read this book. This was a spicy book for sure. It wasn't spicy in the beginning and I didn't think it was going to be at all, to be honest. And then it just kind of like out of nowhere slaps you in the face and you're like, oh, okay. We just went from 0 to 60, it felt like. But it was a cute story. And I liked that the main character is a plus size girl because I feel like almost every main character, and they were built like a toothpick, but with boobs and a butt and perfect hair. I'm like, that's not realistic. So it felt like a more real story. And then October came around and I hadn't found any Halloween-ish themed books around me to read. So I found some on here and I read 2. Both are a cozy mystery and both I absolutely adore. They were very cute and they both had cats. Cats were one of the characters. That's important. I feel like I need to mention that. First one was Spells and Spice Latte, a coffee witch cozy mystery. And then the second one was Which Way, like witch, like pointy hat, not like which way, but Which Way to Murder and Mayhem. Again, they're both witchy cozy mysteries, and they're just perfect for getting in the Halloween mood. And I finished both of those in the month of October. And then the most recent one I read, because it has like a Christmassy cover and it takes place during Christmas. It wasn't super Christmassy, but I didn't mind because I read it in the end of November. So it was like the transition from Halloween to the holiday season. That was what I used this book. It's a Rain of Sun mystery, so I guess it's a series, and I probably love all of them. But this one is called Gutsy Lovers and Cadavers, and it was great. I loved it. It was a out there story, but yet I always am able to figure out like who done it in mysteries. I had a harder time with the one that I just read, but that's because it was also dealing with the occult. But the ones where it's just like, there's someone here who did it, I always know. And I figured out like early on, out of nowhere, I'm just like, oh, so they did it. Like, I do not spoil it, but I still read the whole book because I'm like, I could be wrong. I'm never wrong. But yeah, those are all of the books I read this year. So as I mentioned, I'd set a reading challenge to read 20 books, and I technically read 20.5, but I might read this last one over the next couple days. We'll see if I get it done before Monday. It's only like 200-ish pages, and it's also small. Like, it's a smaller book. Like, the pages aren't full size, so I feel like I'll probably fly through it, but I do have other things to do. And my goal for 2024, I think, is to either read, like, I'm trying to decide if I want to set it to 25, which I think is realistic and attainable, or set it to 30 books. Should I that's a fun challenge. I feel like, I don't know. I might set it to 30. I feel like I could do it. It's only 10 more books, and I'm setting myself up to have more time for that kind of stuff. Like, I was going through a lot of transitions through this past year that ate up any amount of time that I have. But yeah, I'm gonna have more time this year to enjoy some downtime, which I very much need. For my sanity. I'm definitely hoping to read more. But yeah, I don't know how to close this vlog. I don't know how to close this video because I'm basically only vlogging for the past several months. So I forget how you end it. Goodbye. But I hope you enjoyed this, and maybe you picked up a few books along the way from this video that you want to read yourself. And if you read them, I hope you enjoy them. And if you've already read some of these books, please comment down below so we can discuss. I would love to discuss these with someone. I hope if you set any goals like this, or just a reading goal in general for the next year, like, be kind to yourself. If you get in the ballpark of your goal, that's awesome. And if you start working on it and you go, nope, this isn't gonna happen, it's fine. You don't have to. You really don't. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. My posting schedule is kind of up in the air right now, so you might want to turn on the notification bell because I don't know. I don't know when, where, how I'm gonna do it. So yeah. I'll see ya when I see ya. This is so heavy. Oh my goodness. Don't drop it on my iPad. I hope that worked for a thumbnail.